I didn't expect silence to be so loud. When I said the words, "I'm gay," the world didn't end. No one screamed, no one laughed, but the silence that followed, it was deafening. It filled every corner of my chest, like thunder that refused to fade. My voice shook. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, but for the first time in my life, I meant every word. Before I said it, I practiced it hundreds of times in my head, in the shower, on late night walks, even whispering it into my pillow when no one could hear. Each time, my throat would tighten, and the words would die before they could escape. It's strange how something so simple, just 3 little words, can feel like holding a live wire in your mouth. I grew up in a home where love was loud, but certain kinds of love were never mentioned. It was the kind of place where you learned to read the air, to sense what was safe and what wasn't. And even though nobody ever said the words, "Being gay is wrong," the silence said it for them. So I learned to be quiet, to smile at the right jokes, to pretend I understood what everyone else was feeling, to look away when my heart wanted to look a little longer. That silence became my armor. But after years of wearing it, I couldn't breathe anymore. People talk about coming out journeys like they're acts of bravery, but for me, it didn't start with courage. It started with exhaustion. I was tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being a ghost in my own life. It happened on a Sunday. The air smelled like rain and detergent. Clean but heavy. My best friend Mia was sitting across from me. She was the kind of person who could make quiet feel safe. We'd been friends since middle school. She knew everything about me, except the one thing I could never say. She was talking about some guy she liked, and I laughed too hard to fake. That laugh, it didn't sound like me. It sounded like someone else wearing my skin. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't keep living that way. My heart started racing. My hands were shaking under the table. There was a voice in my head screaming, "Don't do it!" And another whispering, "If not now, when?" I took a deep breath, and it felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing what was below. "Mia," I said, "I need to tell you something." She turned toward me, calm and curious. "What's up?" I could barely hear my own voice when I said it. "I'm gay." And just like that, sure. And that small minds. 2 words. And for a second, nothing. Time froze. The air stood still. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the rain tapping against the window, and the sound of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I thought she would be shocked, or confused, or maybe even angry. Instead, she just smiled. She said, "I know." And she laughed, not in a cruel way, but softly, like she'd been waiting for me to catch up. "I've known for years," she said. And I just stared at her, completely stunned. "What do you mean you knew?" She grinned and said, "Yakwazadia kumyura mine." You always talked about that actress a little too much. I couldn't help but laugh. A real laugh this time. One that felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. Then I asked, "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it wasn't mine to say," she answered. "You needed to hear it from yourself first." That hit me so hard, because for so long, I thought coming out was about announcing who I was to the world. But in that moment, I realized it's really about accepting who you are to yourself. The words didn't change how she saw me. They changed how I saw me. We sat there in silence, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was gentle. It was peace. I didn't feel like a secret anymore. I felt real. The next morning, nothing looked different. Same sky, same streets, same people. But I was different. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe without lying. I used to think love meant fitting in, blending in, becoming the kind of person people expected me to be. But love, real love, doesn't ask you to shrink. It asks you to show up. In the days that followed, something shifted quietly inside me. Even the smallest moments felt lighter. That sounds silent. Like sunlight finally reaching the corners of my soul, I started to laugh more freely. I stopped editing myself in conversations, and every time I said I'm gay, it felt less like an apology and more like a declaration. That was the moment I understood what people mean when they say freedom. It's not about flags or parades or declarations. It's about the peace of sitting with yourself and realizing you're finally not pretending. This was the real start of my queer story. Not the moment I told someone else, but the moment I finally stopped hiding from me. If you're listening to this right now, and your heart is beating faster because you know those words are sitting heavy in your chest. I see you. I know what that feels like. The fear, the confusion, the waiting for the right time. The right moment that never seems to come. Here's the truth no one told me. There's no perfect moment. There's just this one, the one where your voice shakes, your palms sweat, and your heart feels like it's about to burst. That's the moment that matters. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking even when your voice trembles. When I said I'm gay, my voice shook, but it was the most honest sound I've ever made. It wasn't about who I loved. It was about allowing myself to love. Openly, fully, fearlessly. If you're somewhere in your own coming out journey, I want you to remember this. Your story doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It doesn't have to be perfect to be real. It just has to be yours. You don't owe anyone your truth, but when you're ready, you deserve the peace that comes from living it. And when you finally say the words, whatever they are for you, your voice might shake, but trust me, it will set you free. So if this story meant something to you, leave a comment below. Share where you are in your own journey. Even if you're still whispering it in the dark, you're not alone here. We're all part of the same story, just written in different voices. And if you need a reminder that you're seen, heard, and loved, hit subscribe, because that's what this space is for. A place for every voice that once trembled and learned to speak.